Vance. And the original title of the book was Burning Down Washington. And, Roberts may have a CEO title. He may wear nice suits, but he is less than 1 degree away from jailed extremist agitator Steve Bannon. And Steve Bannon's language from deconstructing the administrative state, this is a war on democracy, a war on government, a war on the American people. It's very extremist. And his fingerprint is all over this. And Roberts also frequently was going on Bannon's war room. So we have to be mindful of exactly how extremist this whole thing is. And when you're in this universe, there's always a war on women. There's always a kind of demographic, racist, component to, and this is the Orban playbook. There's a reason Orban, when he comes to Washington, he doesn't see Biden. He goes to kiss the ring of Trump, and then he goes to kiss the ring of Kevin Roberts. These are kindred spirits in the interests of growing white Christian civilization. So all of this is very predictable, and they really don't care what the American people think.
That a lot of this is also a veiled Christian nationalist worldview. When one of the things Roberts talks about throughout his book, and I was thinking about it, I was listening to your discussion, was this idea that using revolutionary language, talking about the fact that we have to bring the rest of the world back to its natural order, using a lot of Christian, religious language, and he described the natural order of things as the Western worldview and the American worldview. And I think that's where the tie-in here is that that religiosity and that Christian nationalism is, again, what this is about. And we just have to make sure they're not able to mask it. And you've been doing really good work, and a lot of others, to not let them run as much as they are. Just keep that spotlight on them.
I think this is more than someone who's just aging. This is somebody, I think, who's living in the past for the reasons you identified, which is that it's common to go back to what you know. There's another thing to really remember is that the United States is going to become a majority country, within the next 20 years or so. And he is standing up for a world he came from, a primarily white world.
That's right. And he can't let go of it.
Then if you've been a lifelong Republican, I've got news for you. This party is not the party you grew up with. And it's surprising to me how few people I encounter just in daily life who have fully absorbed that reality.
So you're saying you're going to vote for her. Does that send a message if she wins and Donald Trump loses again? If Republicans potentially lose the Senate, they lose the House, you think that's going to send a message?
It will send a message. Now, who knows if it's received? There's a difference between sending a message and absorbing a message. It would absolutely send a message that the path of MAGA is a path of electoral ruin.
It's Alex DeGrasse here in the War Room on August 15th, the year of our Lord, 2024. And as you see, they are totally unraveling. It's game time here on War Room Battleground with about 80 days to go and votes cast in about 3.5 weeks. So I think what we'll see, as Steve has always said, and what an honor to be here in his chair, of course, and we all continue to pray for Steve. And as I've always said, it's always what we hear when we're out in the field, of course, with voters is, how's Steve doing? Have you spoken to Steve? The MAGA movement is certainly pressing forward on all fronts. I feel very optimistic as we dig in. To kick it off, we have one of the greatest warriors in the Make America Great Again movement, Matthew Boyle, who was there from the very beginning as one of the smartest political minds. And we've got him in to quickly give a take on where we see things holistically in the battleground states and the current state of play. So thank you, Matt.
To be here, Alex. Yeah, look, the big picture is the establishment media would like everybody out there to believe that we're on a pathway here to Kamala momentum and that she's going to soar into the White House and that this election's in the bag for the Democrats and that it's over for Trump and that the right is going to lose. I think that they're wrong. I think that they're making a significant miscalculation. If you look at the data that is coming in from polls and other sources from across the battleground states about voter registration numbers, et cetera, things are looking a lot better for the Republicans than the establishment media would have you believe. First and foremost, there's a new poll that came out today from the AARP, which was conducted by a Republican and Democrat pollster who worked together, Fabrizio Ward, and they polled Michigan. Donald Trump has a 2-point lead in the crowded field in Michigan, right? So he's up 2 points over Kamala Harris there. Across there's several national polls that have come out in the last several days. There is a Fox News poll, obviously, that had Donald Trump up 50-49 over Kamala Harris at majority support level, by the way. That's significant. And also another national poll that came out from Pew Research that had Kamala Harris up 1. The Pew poll is actually really interesting for a number of different reasons, particularly that the Pew poll has a massive sample size. It also shows Donald Trump far outperforming what anyone would expect with both women and with white working class voters. We have a big article on Breitbart about that today. The white working class voters numbers in the Pew poll. That's the entire election right there, by the way. The entire election will be decided by white working class voters, people without college degrees across the Rust Belt that, yes, there will be working around the margins with minority voters, with black voters, Hispanic voters, et cetera. But white working class voters will decide the next president of the United States. Those white working class voters, in particular, in places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. The data is showing significant movement Trump's way. Over the last 4 years since the 2020 election, voter registration data as well in the key states, particularly Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, you are seeing a more than net 300,000 vote swing in voter registration data away from Democrats towards Republicans since the 2020 election. Over the last few weeks or month or so since the Democrats made the switch to Kamala, you've seen thousands more people moving that way. The Scott Presslers of the world and the Turning Point Actions of the world are out there registering voters who weren't registered or flipping their registrations. And you're seeing counties in working class areas in Pennsylvania actually flip from Democrat majority to Republican majority. You've seen a similar trend, but even more profound in places like Florida. Florida, where I'm at, you've seen 1 million more Republicans than Democrats, more than 1 million more. It's just unbelievable. And Republicans were down a few 100,000 to Democrats in the 2020 election. Look at what happened. Florida's become a red state, no doubt about it. So what you're seeing across the board is the numbers and the data are pointing in the direction of Donald Trump. You're seeing also a significant effort across the establishment media, I think, to hype polls that have issues with them. The New York Times Siena College poll of the Rust Belt states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, all had Kamala Harris up 4. But to get that number, the pollsters there, which are usually pretty good. I normally think the world of the New York Times Siena College polling, but to get those numbers, they had to put it at a Dem recalled vote of D +7, Biden +7. What the recalled vote means is that they ask people who they voted for in 2020 in the presidential election, and they said that to get to those numbers where Kamala leads by 4, they had to have Biden +7. Biden did not win Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania by 7%. And so those numbers are just off in terms of that. So if you look at that, it actually would suggest that Donald Trump has the edge in those places. And then in addition to all of that stuff, you've got the latest thing that came out this week was the Cook Political Report released polls across the battleground states. And those polls don't look good for Trump at the top line levels. But there's a couple of things that are really interesting about these that I think are important. First off, they held the polls for 2 weeks before they released them publicly, right? So they conducted these polls from late July to August 2nd, and they didn't release them until August 14th, so nearly 2 weeks later. So that data could have been right back on August 2nd, but on August 14th, August 15th, I don't think so, right? And so I think things have tightened significantly, and if you look across the other polls, I think that that's the case. And then again, there's no way that Kamala Harris and Democrats are going to have the leads that they have in those battleground states. Like, for instance, Senator Jackie Rosen in their Senate poll in Nevada, they have up, the Cook Political Report has up 18% over Republican challenger Sam Brown. That's absolutely untrue. Like, there's no way that Jackie Rosen's up 18 points. She's one of 3 Democrat senators who has said that she's not going to the Democrat National Convention next week in Chicago. Let me put it this way. If Jackie Rosen was up double digits, never mind 18 points, if she was up double digits, she would be at the DNC in Chicago. It's a single point race, or a single digit race, and it might be a few points one way or the other. Sam Brown may have the edge, or Jackie Rosen might have the edge, but it is a dogfight in Nevada right now for the U.S. Senate seat there. And the idea that Jackie Rosen is up 18% is just nonsense. So, you've got to, when you look at polls across the board, you got to, as Steve would say, you've got to cut through the signal or cut through the noise to get to the signal, right? Like, you got to figure out what the data really shows and what it really drill down on it. And I think that that's important, but I think that the picture across the board is suggesting that a month now into the switch to Kamala Harris, or a few weeks into it, that the honeymoon is over, the race is stabilized, and I would argue that Donald Trump has the edge going into the Democrat National Convention next week and turning the corner into September after Labor Day.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So I think 3 important things that to expand on what you talked about. One, the suppression polls, they're going to be coming out of the woodwork, as Matt talked about. It's really important to check the Trump campaign's official messaging when they put the word out like they did on the New York Times Siena, to look at what's behind the data and look at sort of, these are biased polls, look to cause chaos and suppress Republican votes. We're going to see a lot of that, of course. I think the second important thing to expand on what Matt just talked about is, you know, he mentioned briefly that, hey, we're over 50% in that Fox News poll or whichever poll was mentioned, that, and we've seen multiple polls with President Trump at 50 or 51 nationwide. That's unheard of. So the last 3 or 4 times when Republicans have won the presidency, we have not secured the national vote over 50%, nor have we, frankly, come that close to it. And so, at least certainly in the polling. And so this, another metric where we're actually outperforming where we were in 16, in 20, George W. Bush, and likewise. And so despite a lot of noise and sort of panic from the media to talk about their narrative and try to suppress our, enthusiasm, the numbers look very solid in this retrospect of how it's historically been. And I think the last point is, to expand on, is actually all of these numbers are better than where we were in 20, better than where we were in 2016 at this point, pretty significantly, in the states where President Trump won in 2020, and the ones where they stole from him. He was down in all the public polls by 4 or 5 points. And so we have to realize that we are up actually around, on average, 7-8 percentage points on the median from where we were in 2020 to now, and that maintains to be the so with Kamala Harris. And so I think the audience really needs to lock in. I think there's multiple things for people to do. One, if you're in a battleground state, become a Trump force captain. I think that's critical because they've got very important data. My friend James Blair, all the good team over there, they're really targeting those voters that maybe they wouldn't have come out otherwise without getting, an extra push, because a lot of the issue with some of the more traditional get out to vote efforts are you're talking to people that maybe are already in the bank, maybe they're already going to vote anyway, and you're knocking at their door. But the President Trump's campaign is laser focused in turning out specifically low propensity, which means they're not often to vote, a lot of white working class and other folks that we need to really just make sure they get out to vote, because if our people and people that agree with our point of view get out to vote, then we will swamp the vote. As President Trump said, they won't be able to steal it or play any games because the margins will be so high. So I think you could definitely become a Trump force captain if you're not in a battleground state. I think later we're going to get through the map on the House seats and sort of that map, becoming, you could still volunteer and make calls into the battleground states, and the Trump campaign can set you up on their website. And we talked about poll watchers. I've come on the show a lot to talk about the effort that President Trump's campaign is making. That is so important. You can do both. You could be a Trump force captain and you could volunteer to be a poll watcher on the day of Election Day, because I think that is going to be key. And if we can hold the line on the election, and our people come out to vote, then we'll save this country. So, Matt, what would you have to say about all of that?
Yeah, look, there's a number of things to unpack there. First and foremost, the most important thing, and I tweeted about this the other day. I was semi-joking, but like, not a bad idea. Frankly, everybody who works for Trump should like tattoo on the inside of their eyelids, white working class voters. That's going to decide the election. White working class voters in the Rust Belt states, the upper Rust Belt states in particular, right? Like, so the now, I mean, I don't know the safety of doing tattoos inside your eyelids, so like, I'm semi-joking when I say that, but the point is that it's that important. There are some, signs that are pointing in the direction of Trump has work to do on that front, right? Like there are also signs that are pointing in the direction of he's doing very well on that front, but could do better, right? Like, so the Pew poll that I mentioned, the national Pew poll, shows him doing very well. He's blowing Kamala Harris away on that one by 25 points. But on this New York Times Siena College polls, which again, for the reasons that we talked about, have other issues, he's got work to do in those places. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I try not to unpack every single poll in articles or interviews or anything like that, just because there's so much noise out there that what we're trying to do is get a broader picture of where the election really is. And there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation by the establishment media, by Kamala Harris people, et cetera. And what they're trying to do is demoralize, blackpill, the right, and then energize the left, right? Like, so that's why you see them really leaning in on these things. And like, again, I found it extremely suspicious and suspect that the Cook Political Report, which is supposed to be nonpartisan, and usually their data is pretty good, right? Like that they waited 2 weeks to release their polling data. Why'd they wait 2 weeks, right? Like that doesn't make sense. So that would suggest that there's something afoot there. But the fact is that ultimately, cut through the noise to get at the signal of what's important here. And then in addition to that, I would argue that the most important numbers are obviously the voter registration numbers. And the voter registration numbers across the board, nationally speaking, and in all the battleground states look really, really strong. We've done stories about this at Breitbart over the course of the year, over the course of the last several years. But the thing is that everybody out there in the listening audience, even if you don't have time to go be a Trump Force 47 person or captain or whatever, and James Blair's a great guy, by the way. I'm a huge fan of his, both and the work that he's doing. But even if you don't have time to do that or be a poll watcher, you better make sure you're registered to vote. You better figure out what the deadline is in your place, because those deadlines are fast approaching in some places around the country, right? Like, so if you aren't registered to vote, you need to go look it up right now. How do I register to vote? Am I registered to vote, right? Like go on Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever browser you use and go figure it out, right? Like in whatever city, state, town you're in America. In addition to that, across the battleground states, the main states that are going to decide the election are going to be, again, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. There are possibly other ones out there outside of those. We'll see what happens in Virginia, Minnesota. Those are possibilities. We'll see what happens possibly in New Mexico. It is possible that Trump may start expanding the map again like he had it against Biden, especially given the position that we're in right now, where things seem to have stabilized pretty quickly, probably a little faster than even Trump people would have expected after the switch to Kamala Harris. But the other thing I would say is that even if you aren't in one of those battleground states, you can be very much involved, right? Like, again, making phone calls, getting involved on social media, encouraging family members that do live in those places or friends to be involved in persuading people, et cetera. And also, I would just say, don't take any state for granted ever, right? Like, you never know. If you start thinking, oh, my state's in the bag, that's when the Democrats will show up and sneak in and take it, right? Like, so don't ever think that your state's in the bag. Always fight for it, even if it's a red state, even if it's a deep red state, because you never know what they may try to pull off. But across the board, things are looking good. And I would argue, too, when it comes to the Senate and House map, things are looking good for the Republicans as well. Now that we have enough data after the switch to Kamala Harris. And I would argue that the Democrats are starting to really freak out about these things.
Yeah, our plan is someone in party leadership. We were pouring over the numbers weeks ago, and we took it upon ourselves to say, hey, like, this has got to be kind of her peak, right? It's going to be all hands on deck for what we can do outside of the Trump campaign, sort of in the House Republicans, Senate Republicans, and everyone else involved on other levels. And, I think you've seen the fire open up for MAGA Inc. I think they've got, it could be, I don't want to misspeak, but I think, one of the largest ad buys attacking Kamala Harris on the import, 100 million, on the issues that matter, which is why you're seeing her campaign so hollow. And because they have no shame. I mean, they will lie. They will steal their ideas from President Trump. They will suppress us with the polls. They will lie on TV. They will. Kamala Harris is even editing news sites through Google ads, and they will stop at nothing.
House leadership, and I think this is important. I think that if the Republicans hold the House, they take the Senate, and Trump wins the election, the Republicans are actually prepared to do the things that Trump is talking about here, which is to do the no taxes on tips and the no taxes on Social Security income. And they've got the legislative vehicles ready to go on that. Kamala Harris is just doing lip service on this. So it's not just stolen ideas. She's lying, too, in that Democrats in Congress have been campaigning against Trump on all of this stuff. And so then she realized how popular it is, and then she flip-flops on it and tries to co-opt the idea. But the point is that the Republicans, I think, and this is why the down-ticket races are as important here with the House majority and the Senate majority, because the Republicans in Congress are ready to enact that agenda, right? Like, you guys have the legislative vehicles ready to go, right? That's called reconciliation, right? Like, and that's going to be the first bill that Trump does, is he comes in and re-ups the Trump tax cuts, right? Like, so that the middle class doesn't have to pay all this money, that seniors are going to get their Social Security income without tax on it, because why should the government hit you on both ends, right? Like, they hit you when they garnish your paycheck your entire life, and then they tax your Social Security income, which is supposed to be your money at the end of your life. Again, that doesn't make any sense. And Trump and the Republicans are going to make sure that that doesn't get taxed. And then the no taxes on tips thing, which again plays really well in Nevada and other service economy states. But the point is that I do think that the Republicans are actually prepared to do this. I've spoken to Senator Daines about this. He has legislation ready to go.
And I think we've got to hear the music, but we're going to cut for a break. Matt's absolutely right. The efforts going on behind the scenes with the President Trump's campaign, House and Senate, to prepare a legislative agenda is unprecedented, and it's not like 2016. So we're going to cut to a break, and we'll be right back.
In these crazy times, there is peace of mind in security. Security for our country, security for our leaders, and security for our families. But you're not financially secure if all your eggs are in one basket. Gold and silver are an excellent way to diversify your savings. They're a hedge against inflation. With Birch Gold Group, you can own physical gold and silver in a tax-sheltered retirement account. Secure your family's savings today. Text Bannon to 989898 and receive a free info kit on gold. Plus, this August only, Birch Gold is giving away free Trump silver coins with any purchase. This brand new one-of-a-kind silver coin features Trump boldly raising his fist in the moments after the attempt on his life. Don't miss your chance to own this special piece of history, a celebration of a leader dedicated to our security, preserved in the security of a precious metals coin. Secure your savings today and get your free Trump silver coins. Text Bannon to 989898 today. That's Bannon to the number 989898. Americans are tired and frustrated by a stalling economy, inflation, endless wars, and the relentless assault on our values. Thankfully, there are companies like Patriot Mobile that still believe in America and our Constitution. They're on the front lines fighting for the First and Second Amendments, sanctity of life, and our military and first responder heroes. Take a stand for conservative causes and put America first by switching to Patriot Mobile today. You'll get the same nationwide nationwide coverage as the big providers because Patriot Mobile operates across all 3 major networks. Plus, they back their service with a coverage guarantee. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Go to patriotmobile.com/Bannon or call 972-PATRIOT. Right now, get a free month when you use the offer code Bannon. Switch to America's only Christian conservative mobile provider, Patriot Mobile. Go to patriotmobile.com/Bannon or call 972-PATRIOT for your free month of service today. Are you tired of progressive corporations that continue to further alienate conservative Americans, all while eroding the future of the American dream? Companies like Starbucks strong-arming customers to support abortion, and Bud Light forcing gender ideology when all you want to do is enjoy a cool beverage. But thanks to Public Square, you don't have to fund companies like this any longer. Public Square connects you to tens of thousands of businesses that share your value for life, family, and freedom. It's free to join, plus you get discounts to many of the high-quality businesses on that platform. Start spending your hard-earned money on companies that don't hate you. Join me and the millions of patriotic Americans who love truth, our country, and our Constitution at publicsquare.com. Download the app now or visit the site at publicsquare.com. publicsquare.com.
All this nonsense, all this spin, they can't handle the truth.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
And we're back here in the War Room. We're going to go back to what Boyle was talking about, which is sort of the legislative agenda that's being put in place when we secure victory across the House, Senate, and President Trump. I think one of the big differences between now and 2016, and in 2016, I was a field guy out there knocking doors and organizing all of that stuff. So I wasn't in D.C. in the halls of power learning this stuff. But, you know, back in 2016, I don't think many people in D.C. didn't expect President Trump to win on the Republican side, and they didn't really have an agenda and a coordinated plan. This election, we have a great plan. Trump 47 is President Trump's agenda, the 20-point plan that I know everyone loves. And we're working to put that into a legislative reality very quickly. There are very smart folks that are coordinating with President Trump's team and among in the House and Senate. They're looking at the first day, the first 20 days, the first 50 days, the first 100 days, the first year. What's the agenda? What's the plan? It's what President Trump has been talking about. No one else can speak for President Trump's plan and the Republican Party's plan. But I just want to let the audience know that that's the stakes, that we are very coordinated and ready to enact quickly. And it's going to take all of us to get out to vote, get your friends, get involved, get active on social media like Boyle's talking about, you know, tune out the noise, focus on the signal, which is getting ballots in the door, whether by mail, early in person, on election day, whatever we need to do legally to ensure all of our people get out to vote. There's nothing more important facing this country than to secure, as Steve would say, total victory across the board. But I think one thing we have to talk about is just how relentless the Democrats are at trying to stop us. And you know you're over the target, as Steve would say, when they're heavy flak, right? Heavy fire from the Democrat side. And one of the things that Boyle and I spoke about in the show is the election integrity, unprecedented effort from President Trump's campaign to secure the ballot, working with allies and our friends on the ground and training poll watchers. And I think we want to cut it to MSNBC, where they are having a meltdown and they've got their Soros-funded dark money PACs that are working to resist us on every front. And it's important that you guys hear what they're talking about as we lock in.
That we've seen these county officials in multiple states attempt to stop the certification of votes in elections of, in many cases, very little consequence. And they were doing it essentially as a run-through for an election of a great deal of consequences, which is the one this fall. So I think there's almost no question that this is going to happen. And it seems to be happening in a way this year that is more systematic than it has in the past. So that's deeply, deeply concerning. I think the good news is that it's clearly illegal in all of these states, and there are steps that can be taken to effectively halt it in all of these states. We've seen in different states a number of these different responses work. We've seen in New Mexico and Nevada where they've gone to court and gotten orders to ordering these county officials to certify the vote, and that's worked. But the reason why we're putting this report out is to say, here's the law in this state. Here's what can be done, so that state officials can get out there and warn these folks and be ready to act. And in a lot of states, I think the signs have been positive. In a state like Georgia, it's very alarming because you have the state election board going in just the opposite direction. And even though the law is very clear, you have the state election board actually trying to say that county officials can refuse to certify. And that's definitely a place to really keep an eye on.
As you can see, it's a total meltdown. And as we have much positive news, of course, that they're going to stop at nothing to try to stop us in every front with their dark money groups, with the Zucker bucks, which are apparently back in play in many areas, going into the government election offices where the votes are being counted, majority in Democrat areas like we saw in 2020. So some of the same games are happening. And I think that, of course, the poll watchers are so important, but I cannot stress that this is not going to be easy for us. As Steve would say, that the fight ahead is going to be very tough. But if we can execute on offense, and get all of our folks involved, wherever you are in the country, you have a role to play in this movement to get out the vote, secure the ballot, and get everyone involved that you know. And also, I think, convince people, because I do think there's some votes up for grabs. And I think if everyone in 2022, I was like, write down the list, get your 5 people, get them out to vote. We definitely want to do that now. We want to do 10 people. But I think separate from just getting our folks out to vote, the white working class, Hispanics, African Americans, everyone, is to convince 5 people. And I think that there are votes to be convinced. I think there are voters that are sort of unknown and sort of questioning. And I think we have to really take our message. And the message is on the policy, because that is what this campaign and movement is about, is the Make America Great Again policy of President Trump is unprecedented and unmatched, and it will achieve greatness for everyone. If we can go down the points and get that to all those voters, I think will be great. So, Matt, if you want to come back in on election integrity or anything else before we switch over to the House and go into the specifics.
Yeah, well, look, I would just say one of the numbers to watch, too, that I didn't get into in the last segment there is Trump's popularity. And Trump's popularity has actually risen significantly as compared with both 2020 and 2016. CNN had an interesting item on this, and the smarter people across the establishment media are having the exact same discussions that we're having, right? So I would recommend watching people like Steve Kornacki at NBC, people like Harry Enton at CNN, because they're noticing the same stuff in the data and the numbers that we're talking about. This is no secret. There's no surprise, right? And so one of the things that Harry Enton talked about a week or so ago, or a few days ago, was that Donald Trump's popularity has risen significantly as compared with 2016, and by a few points as compared with 2020. And on that note, too, I think that, to your point about persuading people, right? Like, there's a lot of people out there who are willing to be convinced that life was better under Trump, because it was, right? Like, objectively speaking, better under Trump than under the Kamala Harris regime that we live in right now, because, as we all know, Joe Biden's out to lunch. He's not the real president, right? Like, so Kamala Harris has been running the show since the first day in office. I think I saw a clip going around the other day, Kamala Harris whispering in Joe Biden's ear on his first day as president. He didn't know what he was about to sign, and she says, just sign it, Joe. Just sign it, Joe, right? Like, so Kamala Harris has been running the country for the last 4 years. She's responsible for the inflation. She cast the deciding votes on everything. She's responsible for the border and all the millions of people that have poured into the country. She's responsible for the national security crisis failures. She's responsible for the failures in Afghanistan, which we're now on the 3rd anniversary of today. And the terrible things that happened there. Again, all across the board, that's the key. But the fact of the matter is that I do think that people are willing to be convinced, even if they might have this issue or that issue with Trump's tweets or personality or whatever. But guess what? Life was better when Donald Trump was president. Everybody knows it. It's a lot better than with Kamala Harris in charge, as she is right now. So the fact is that I think convincing people of that is important, and the numbers are showing that people are being convinced of that. So keep trying and keep going out there and doing it. Work your neighbors, work your people in your community, work your family, work your friends. I think that it can be done.
Yeah, I think the key thing on the approval of President Trump and his favorability, which is really the story in general, is that when you look at from 2020 to 16, is that TDS has really sort of subsided. I mean, the media is still vocal about it. They're still clinging to it. But average Americans, many of their quote unquote hatred of President Trump has tanked. And you see that in the spread on the favorables, and I know they've spoken about it on CNN and NBC, and it is important for our folks to watch that, and you hear from them, is that they're showing that there's much, much less voters that sort of don't like President Trump either personally or his policies. And what we've been polling as House Republicans to really look at in the weeds is, like, you ask people, think back in 2020 or 2019, right? Did you approve of the job President Trump was doing as president? And that number is always the highest. And so maybe even if you don't like him for whatever reason, people will admit at a much higher rate than anything else that, yes, they did approve the job he did. And that has to be the basis of our argument, is that President Trump has already done it once. He'll do it again. We've got a much stronger apparatus to get things done to serve the American people. And so I'm pretty excited about it. Now, one of the most important things to talk about, in addition to President Trump's campaign, is the House and Senate that we've been speaking about. And so if you want to pull up that, I think we've got the Axios story from a couple weeks ago when we launched one of our great offensives that we're taking part in. If we can put that up, is Republicans go deep in the Biden territory because of all the points that Boyle is talking about. Our issue set, everything else, that we feel great. We are on a total offensive in the House, and that's what it's going to take. We need to expand this margin in the House by 5-10 seats would be huge. That's going to give President Trump the breathing room to get his agenda through Congress so we don't have any games from our side of the aisle. And I can't tell you how important that is. It is just as important as getting President Trump into the White House, that we can lock this down, and to flip the Senate, of course. But as a House guy, I think we wanted to kind of go into some of the numbers here. And Matt, just jump in. But there's a lot of seats everywhere in play. Certainly if you're in California and New York, most of the seats in play are in those seats, and we could talk about those in depth at a later time. So just because you're not in a presidential state doesn't mean you don't have a competitive House seat, or that you happen to live or are near a seat that Republicans are targeting. And
yeah,
so
look,
we've got... Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so Alex, I would say there are battleground House districts from everywhere from Alabama to New Mexico to California to New York to North Carolina. I mean, again, there are battleground House districts in almost every state in the union, right? And so yes. Where there are opportunities for Republicans. Now, look, there are some places out there that are just not going to go one way or the other. But the fact is that, I mean, look, there's a seat in Alabama. I've had Caroline Dobson on my radio show. She's the Republican nominee.
She's amazing.
For a congressional seat. Democrats thought through redistricting that they were going to take one from us in Alabama, and they screwed up, right? Like, I've had her on Breitbart Radio on Saturdays. She's fantastic. There's a district in southern New Mexico that I think is in play too, that has swung back and forth in the last several elections, right? There's several seats in North Carolina. There's I think one or two in Minnesota. There's a few in New York. There are some in California. There are, I mean, they're everywhere, right? And so, the House districts better than I do. So, I mean, you should break it down for people. I mean, but the fact is that there are massive pickup opportunities here for Republicans. They could add, there's I think a couple in Ohio, right? And so there are opportunities here for Republicans, not just to hold their slim majority. I mean, what is it, like 3 or 4 seats right now in the House of Representatives? Not only to hold it, but you guys could expand it significantly by up to 15 or 20 seats, or maybe even more if you play your cards right, and depending on how the presidential race and Senate races go as well in these places. But I do think that there are historic opportunities here in the House of Representatives. And this has been a story the establishment media has missed in every one of the last several elections, dating back to 2018, 2020, 2022. And I remember doing stuff with then House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who later became the Speaker, now is a former Speaker. we went through all of these districts and whatnot, and the establishment media missed the story repeatedly missed the story.
I mean, we picked up seats in 2020, picked up seats in 2022, flipped the House, didn't lose as many seats as people were talking about in 2018, 2016, held the House. So it is the story that people will ignore. And I think if we want to go quickly, because we don't have much time, we're talking about 5 of these are must wins. These are 5 seats that President Donald J. Trump won in 2020. And there's absolutely no excuse and no reason why they're held by House Democrat. They have voted for Kamala Harris's dangerous agenda like 95% of the time, if not even more, in all of these seats. And so these are really the 5 must win that we have to put in the bag so as we can march deeper. We've got Alaska. President Trump has endorsed Nancy Dahlstrom. She's the lieutenant governor. With ranked choice, I'm not going to lie, this is tough. We have to unite behind Nancy. She is President Trump's endorsed candidate as well as House leadership. I understand there's some other Republicans running, but the problem is with the other Republicans, we eat our own vote in the ranked choice, and we actually provide a path for the Democrat. And so we have to vote Nancy. We have to get her on number 2 in the ranked choice and put her in a strong position to win upcoming in the primary. So please, this is an important one. That's why President Trump is involved. She's the lieutenant governor. She's great. She supports President Trump. We need to get her in there. Maine 2. This is a battleground electoral, count for President Trump, since Maine does theirs sort of by congressional district. Maine 2. President Trump won it. We need to win it. Austin Terrio. He's a NASCAR driver. He's an amazing guy. He's French name, French area. We got to get him in there. That's super important. We feel great about this race. The numbers look great. President Trump is doing great. His opponent has tried to play games. Jared, try to say, try to call for Joe Biden to step down in the last minute. But for months, these people have been propping him up, and he's on video countless times saying that Biden's healthy and everything else. So all of these guys are part of the greatest cover-up in political history, this sort of coup for Kamala Harris and sort of propping up Joe Biden in the White House. We've got Derek Marin, who I think Boyle probably knows, but we got him in there after another Republican candidate had sort of backstabbed Trump in the primary, and we got Derek in there. So this is an important one in Ohio 9. I think that's around the Cleveland area, but I could be wrong, and I apologize. But that's super important. With President Trump doing well in Ohio, hopefully we'll ride the coattails and work together and be a game of addition to get him in there. Pennsylvania 8, this is Scranton. Rob Bresnahan, he's an amazing candidate. He built a construction company. He's got a ton of union workers. I would love to come back on. We can go over some of his ads. He's got some great ads. This is, quote unquote, Joe Biden's hometown. Scranton area. We're going to bury the Democrat there. And President Trump's doing well in this area. So hopefully we need to kind of get voters to vote Republican down the line. We can't afford people to vote President Trump and vote for House Democrat because maybe they think he's a nice guy or they saw him at a chicken barbecue. No, we need full Republicans down the line. We've got Joe Kent, who's I know a fan favorite here, a posse favorite here on the show. This is a must-win seat. President Trump won it. He's won it twice. We need to get Joe Kent in there. We need to put this seat away. We need folks to unite and rally at the grassroots to sort of make sure this gets done. So we're almost out of time here. So those are the top 5, and we'll come back on. Boyle and I will go deep into the map because we're targeting over 40. Alabama, New York, California, everywhere. Thank you, Boyle. You want to give your digits and where you're at on social media?
At mboyle1 on Twitter and at realmapboyle on Twitter. Go to Breitbart.com.
Thank you, Boyle. As Steve said, he's a total weapon. And so thank you all. I appreciate it to be in the war room. This is Alex DeGrasse signing off on August 15th, the year of our Lord, 2024. Thank you.